The heavy doors of the grand chamber opened with a deep metallic groan. Two Varathian guards dragged an old human man across the polished floor. His gray hair was messy and his simple clothes were torn in several places. The man's name was Timon, and he was 73 years old. His face showed many wrinkles from years of sun and hard work, but his dark eyes were sharp and alert. The grand chamber was massive. It could fit 3 football fields inside with room to spare. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. Hundreds of Varathian nobles sat on floating platforms that circled the room. They wore expensive robes made from materials that changed colors as they moved. At the center of it all sat Empress Valrix on her throne. The throne was carved from a single piece of black crystal that seemed to absorb all light around it. The guards threw Timon to his knees in front of the throne. He grunted but did not cry out. His knees hit the hard floor with a crack that echoed through the chamber. The Varathian nobles began to laugh. It started as a few chuckles but soon grew into roaring laughter that filled the entire space. "This is a human?" One noble called out. His voice was high and mocking. "I thought they were supposed to be warriors. This one looks like he should be sleeping in a retirement home." More laughter erupted. Another noble, a female with purple skin and 4 arms, leaned forward on her platform. "I heard stories about humans from my grandfather. He said they once made the galaxy tremble. But look at this one. He can barely stand." Timon slowly got to his feet. His movements were careful and deliberate, like someone who had learned to conserve energy over many years. He brushed some dust off his torn shirt and looked around the chamber. His expression did not change. He did not look angry or scared. He just watched them with those sharp, dark eyes. Empress Valrix raised one long hand. The laughter stopped immediately. The silence that followed was so complete that Timon could hear his own breathing. The Empress was tall, even for a Varathian. Her skin was deep red, almost black in the shadows. 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows studied Timon like a scientist studying an insect. "Explain yourself, human," she said. Her voice was smooth and cold like ice water. "Your primitive vessel was detected near our border. You were trespassing in Varathian space. This is an act of war." Timon said nothing. He continued to look at her with that same calm expression. "Do you not speak?" Valrix asked. Her tone became sharper. "Or are you too stupid to understand our language?" "I understand you perfectly," Timon said. His voice was quiet but clear. It carried through the chamber without effort. "I was not trespassing. My ship was on a humanitarian mission to the Outer Rim colonies." "A likely story," Commander Dravik said. He stepped forward from his position beside the throne. Dravik was the head of the Varathian military. He was built like a tank, with thick armor plates covering his body and scars crossing his face. "We know what you were really doing, human. You were spying on our forces, watching our movements, preparing for some pathetic attempt at resistance." "Resistance?" Timon asked. He tilted his head slightly. "Why would humans resist the Varathian Empire?" Dravik laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. "Because we are coming for your worlds, old man. Your species abandoned the galaxy 200 years ago. You ran away like cowards and hid in your little corner of space. Now that territory is valuable. We need those systems for our expansion. And there is nothing you can do to stop us." The nobles began talking among themselves. Their voices created a buzz of excitement. Timon heard words like easy conquest and primitive technology and barely any resistance. Empress Valrix stood from her throne. She was over 8 feet tall. She walked down the steps toward Timon with slow, confident movements. When she reached him, she looked down at his weathered face. "Your species made a mistake 2 centuries ago," she said. "You withdrew from galactic affairs. You cut off contact with other civilizations. You became ghosts? And in that time the galaxy moved on. It evolved. It grew stronger. The Varathian Empire rose to power. We conquered 40 star systems. We command 12,000 warships. We have weapons that can crack planets like eggs." She circled around Timon slowly. He turned his head to keep her in view but did not move his feet. "And what do humans have?" she continued. "According to our intelligence, you have perhaps 500 ships scattered across 20 systems. Your technology is old. Your weapons are outdated. Your people have grown soft with peace." She stopped in front of him again. "You are not warriors anymore. You are just memories of warriors. And memories cannot stop us." Timon was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the Empress, then at Commander Dravik, then at all the nobles floating on their platforms. His face still showed no emotion, but something changed in his eyes. Something old and dangerous flickered there for just a second. "Is that what you believe?" he asked softly. "It is what we know," Vorik said, "which is why I am giving you this opportunity. You will send a message to your human leaders. You will tell them that the Vorathian Empire is claiming the former human territories. You will tell them to evacuate peacefully. If they cooperate, we will allow your species to relocate to a small reservation world. If they resist," she smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Well, we will do what conquerors have always done." Timon took a deep breath. He looked down at the floor for a moment, as if considering her words very carefully. Then he looked back up at the Empress. When he spoke, his voice was still quiet, but every person in that massive chamber heard every word clearly. 200 years ago, he said, humanity withdrew from the galaxy. That is true. But we did not run away because we were afraid. We withdrew because we needed to think about what we had become during the Coalition Wars. We needed to decide if we wanted to continue down that path. The Coalition Wars were centuries ago, Dravik scoffed. Ancient history. Not to me, Timon said. He looked directly at the commander. I was there. That statement hung in the air. Several nobles stopped talking. Empress Valrix's eyes narrowed. You are telling me you are over 200 years old? She asked. Impossible. Humans do not live that long. Most don't, Timon agreed. But some of us do. Some of us received medical treatments during the wars. Treatments that extended our lives so we could continue fighting. I am one of the last survivors from that time. He paused. Which means I remember what the galaxy has forgotten. And what is that? Valrix asked. Timon's expression finally changed. The calm mask fell away. What replaced it was something much harder. Much colder, what humans are really capable of when pushed. The chamber was silent again. This time the silence felt different. It felt heavier. Empress Valrix stared at the old human for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was a sharp, brittle sound. You are trying to frighten us with stories, old man. It will not work. The human era is over. The Vorathian era has begun. She turned to Commander Dravik. Prepare the invasion fleets. We move into human space within the week. Timon closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, they were filled with something that might have been sadness. Or maybe regret. Then I have one message for you, he said quietly. One message for your empire, for your fleets, for your soldiers. He looked directly at Empress Valrix. You want war? We will give you war. 3 days passed. Timon was kept in a small holding cell beneath the grand chamber. The cell was dark and cold, with walls made of smooth metal that reflected no light. Guards brought him water and food twice a day. The food tasted like paper mixed with chemicals, but Timon ate it all. He needed to keep his strength up. On the morning of the 4th day, guards came for him again. This time there were 6 of them, all armed with energy rifles. They put heavy chains on his wrists and ankles. The chains were connected to each other, making it hard to walk. Timon shuffled along between the guards as they led him through long corridors. They brought him to a different chamber. This one was even larger than the first. It was an arena-style room with thousands of seats rising up on all sides. Every seat was filled. Vorathians from across the empire had come to watch. Large screens floated in the air above the arena floor, showing Timon's face from multiple angles. This was being broadcast across the entire empire. Empress Valrix sat in a special viewing box high above the arena. Commander Dravik stood beside her. Around them sat the most powerful nobles and military leaders in the empire. They all looked down at Timon like he was an animal in a zoo. A Varathian announcer's voice boomed through speakers. Citizens of the empire, today you witness history. Before you stands a representative of the human species. A species that once claimed to be powerful. A species that ran away from the galaxy like frightened children. Today, the Empress will give them one final chance to surrender peacefully. The crowd roared. They stomped their feet and cheered. The sound was so loud that Timon felt it vibrating in his chest. Empress Valrix stood up. The crowd immediately went silent. She looked down at Timon from her high box. Human, she called out. You have been given time to think about your situation. Your people face inevitable conquest. The Varathian Empire is unstoppable. We give you this opportunity to beg for mercy on behalf of your species. Kneel before the Empire. Acknowledge our superiority. Ask us to spare your worlds. The crowd waited. Thousands of alien eyes focused on the old human man standing alone in the center of the arena. Taem and looked up at the Empress. Then he looked around at all the faces watching him. He took his time, studying them carefully. Finally, he spoke. His voice was calm and clear. I will not kneel, he said. And I will not beg. The crowd gasped. Angry murmurs spread through the stands. Then your people will suffer the consequences, Valrix said coldly. Commander Dravik, tell this fool what awaits his species. Dravik stepped to the edge of the viewing box. He pointed down at Timon with one clawed hand. Old man, let me explain reality to you. The Varathian military consists of 12,000 warships. Each ship carries weapons powerful enough to destroy a city in seconds. Our soldiers are trained from birth to fight. Our shields can withstand any weapon your primitive technology might throw at us. He started counting on his fingers. We have conquered 40 star systems. We have defeated 16 different species. We have never lost a major battle, never, and you think your pathetic human worlds can resist us? You think your 500 old ships can stop 12,000 new ones? The crowd laughed and cheered. Dravik smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Your species will be crushed in weeks, he continued. Maybe days? We will take your colonies one by one. We will strip your planets of resources. And we will do it so easily that future generations will use humans as an example of what happens to weak civilizations. More cheering. More stomping. The arena shook with the sound. Timon waited for the noise to die down. Then he spoke again. His voice was still quiet, but somehow everyone heard him clearly. You are making a mistake. The only mistake, Valrix said, is that your species ever thought they were important. The galaxy has moved on, human. You are obsolete. You are history. And history belongs in museums, not in valuable star systems. Timon shook his head slowly. You do not understand. Humanity did not flee the galaxy. We withdrew. There is a difference. Fleeing, withdrawing, running away, Dravik said dismissively. Different words for the same cowardice. No, Timon said firmly. His voice grew stronger. During the Coalition Wars, humanity fought on every front. We developed weapons that scared even our allies. We created strategies that other species called ruthless. We won battles that everyone said were impossible to win. He paused. And then we looked at what we had become. We looked at the destruction we had caused. We looked at the fear in everyone's eyes when they saw human ships approaching. And we decided we did not want to be that species anymore. He took a step forward. The chains rattled. So we withdrew. We gave the galaxy time to heal. Time to forget. Time to rebuild without us. We went back to our own systems and we focused on becoming better. We thought that maybe, after enough time, the galaxy would not need to be afraid of humans anymore. Touching story, Valrix said. But it changes nothing. You abandoned your place in the galaxy. You gave up your power. And now we will take what you left behind. You think we gave up our power? Timon asked. Something in his tone made a few people in the crowd shift uncomfortably. We gave up our desire to use it. That is not the same thing. Commander Dravik laughed. Old man, your bluffs are pathetic. We have seen your ship designs. We have analyzed your technology. Everything you have is 200 years old. You might have been dangerous once, but that time is long gone. Is it? Timon asked quietly. He looked directly at Empress Vorix. When he spoke next, his voice carried a weight that made even the loudest nobles go quiet. I was not on a humanitarian mission. That was a lie. I was conducting reconnaissance near your borders because we detected unusual Varathian fleet movements. My ship was designed to be captured. I allowed myself to be taken prisoner. I came here specifically to deliver a message in person. Valrix leaned forward. What message? Timon's expression hardened. His eyes became cold and distant, like someone remembering terrible things. Turn back. Leave human space alone. Pretend you never considered this invasion. Because if you proceed, you will learn why humanity chose to withdraw. You will learn what we were trying to save the galaxy from. Threats? Dravik roared. You dare threaten the Varathian Empire? Not a threat, Timon said. A warning. There is a difference. He looked around the arena again. You see me as an old man? A weak human from a species you think you can easily defeat. But I remember things you do not. I remember the coalition wars. I remember what humans did when pushed into a corner. I remember the weapons we created, the tactics we used, the lengths we went to in order to survive. His voice dropped to almost a whisper, but everyone heard it. And I remember the promise we made when we withdrew. We promised ourselves that if we ever had to fight again, we would be ready. We promised that we would never be caught unprepared. We have spent 200 years keeping that promise. Silence filled the arena. It was so quiet that people could hear their own heartbeats. Then Empress Valrix stood up. Her face showed anger now. Enough of this nonsense. You are a prisoner trying to save his species with fairy tales. Commander Dravik, send the first invasion fleet immediately. 3 fleets. 3,000 ships. Let them see what real military power looks like. Dravik bowed. It will be done, my Empress. He turned to Timon and smiled cruelly. In 1 week, your worlds will burn, and you will watch from a cell as your species falls. Timon closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were filled with something that looked like genuine sadness. I tried to warn you, he said softly. I gave you a chance to turn back, but you would not listen. He looked directly at Commander Dravik. You asked if we dare threaten the Varathian Empire. The answer is no. We do not threaten. He paused. The chains rattled as he shifted his weight. You want war? We will give you war. The words echoed through the arena. For just a moment, everyone felt something. A chill that ran down their spines. An ancient fear that touched something deep in their brains. The feeling disappeared quickly, but it had been there. Empress Valrix waved her hand. Take him back to his cell. I am tired of listening to this fool. The guards grabbed Timon and dragged him toward the exit. As he passed through the doorway, he looked back over his shoulder one last time. His eyes met those of the Empress across the vast distance of the arena. She would remember that look for the rest of her life. It was not the look of a defeated prisoner. It was the look of someone who had seen the future and knew exactly what was coming. The doors closed behind him with a deep boom. That sounded almost like thunder, or maybe like the sound of a war drum beginning to beat after 200 years of silence. The 3 Varathian fleets moved through space like locusts. Commander Dravik commanded the operation from his flagship, the Eternal Fang. It was the largest warship in the Varathian military, stretching over 2 miles from front to back. Around it, 3,000 other ships formed perfect formations. Cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels moved together in a display of military precision. They entered human space through the Outer Rim Gateway. The gateway was a natural phenomenon, a stable wormhole that connected 2 parts of the galaxy. Sensors swept ahead of the fleet, searching for human defenses. They found nothing. No mines, no patrol ships, no defensive satellites. The intelligence was correct, Dravik said to his bridge crew. These humans have no real military presence. They truly did abandon their defensive capabilities. His second officer, a young Varathian named Krell, checked his screens. Sir, we are approaching the first human colony world. It is called New Jeju. Population estimates suggest 2 million humans live there. Excellent, Dravik said. We will make an example of this world. Full orbital bombardment. I want every building reduced to rubble. The humans need to understand what resistance means. The fleet approached New Jeju. It was a beautiful planet. Blue oceans covered 60% of the surface. Green continents showed forests and farmland. White clouds drifted through the atmosphere. From space, it looked peaceful and quiet. Still no defensive response, Krell reported. No ships launching. No weapons powering up. Should we begin the bombardment? Dravik was about to give the order when a sensor officer spoke up. Sir, we have a contact. Single ship emerging from behind the planet's moon. One ship? Dravik laughed. They sent one ship to defend an entire world? How pathetic. The human vessel appeared on the main screen. It was small compared to the Varathian warships, maybe the size of a destroyer. But its design was different from anything in their databases. Smooth, curved lines instead of the angular shapes most species used. The hull was dark gray, almost black, and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. What class of ship is that? Dravik asked. The tactical officer worked at his console. Unknown, sir. It does not match any human designs in our records. It appears to be new construction? New? Dravik frowned. I thought humans stopped building military ships 200 years ago. That was the intelligence report, sir. The human ship moved toward them. It did not accelerate aggressively or power up weapons. It simply glided forward at a steady pace. When it reached a position between the fleet and the planet, it stopped. A transmission came through on all frequencies. A young woman's face appeared on the screens. She looked to be in her 30s, with short black hair and sharp features. She wore a dark blue uniform with simple rank insignia on the collar. Her expression was calm and professional. Varathian fleet, she said. I am Captain Hannah of the Human Defense Force. You have entered human territory without permission. You have ignored our border warnings. You have declared hostile intent against the civilian colony. This is your final warning. Turn back now or face the consequences. The bridge crew of the Eternal Fang stared at the screen in disbelief. Then they started laughing. Dravik laughed hardest of all. One ship, he shouted. One tiny ship. And they issue warnings to us? He wiped tears from his eyes. Captain Hannah, I command 3,000 warships. 3,000. Do you understand numbers? Hannah's expression did not change. I understand perfectly. Do you understand what you are facing? I am facing an outdated destroyer with delusions of grandeur, Dravik said. Final chance, human. Surrender your ship and we might let you live. No, Hannah said simply. Dravik's smile disappeared. Then you will die. All weapons target that human ship. Fire. 200 Varathian ships opened fire at once. Energy beams, missiles, plasma bolts, and railgun rounds all converged on the human destroyer. The amount of firepower was enough to vaporize a small moon. The view screen showed a massive explosion as the weapons hit their target. Direct hit, sir, the weapons officer reported. Target is... He stopped. His face went pale. The explosion cleared. The human ship was still there. Not damaged. Not even scratched. A shimmer surrounded it, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The shield technology was unlike anything the Varathians had seen. The energy that should have destroyed the ship had simply been absorbed. Impossible, Krell whispered. Target is still operational, the weapons officer said unnecessarily. Their shields held. No damage detected. Dravik gripped the arms of his command chair. Fire again. All ships. Continuous bombardment. I want that ship reduced to atoms. The fleet opened fire again. This time, all 3,000 ships participated. The space around the human destroyer became a wall of weapons fire. Energy and matter poured into that small area for 10 straight seconds. The sensors could not even see through the explosions. When the firing stopped, the human ship was still there. Still undamaged? The shimmer around it had not even flickered. Captain Hannah's voice came through the speakers again. "You had your chance?" "Sir," the tactical officer called out. "The human ship is powering weapons. Energy readings are... I do not understand these numbers. They cannot be correct." "What do you mean?" Dravik demanded. "Sir, the amount of energy they are generating ... It is more than our entire flagship produces. From a ship 1/10 our size. A single weapon discharged from the human destroyer. It did not look like a missile or an energy beam. It looked like reality itself twisted for a moment. A ripple in space moved outward from the human ship at incredible speed. The ripple touched 12 Varathian cruisers in the front line. All 12 ships stopped. Their lights went out. Their engines went silent. They drifted in space, completely dead. "Report?" Dravik shouted. "All 12 ships are disabled, sir," Krell said. His voice shook. "Total power failure. Life support is failing. They are sending emergency evacuation signals." 12 ships, Dravik said slowly. "From one shot." "Sir?" the sensor officer interrupted. "Multiple contacts. Human ships emerging from hyperspace. New vessels appeared around the fleet. Not thousands, but hundreds. Each one was similar in design to Captain Hannah's destroyer. Smooth, dark, and radiating power signatures that should not be possible. New contacts numbering 417, the sensor officer reported. They are forming a combat sphere around our position." Dravik felt sweat forming on his face. "All ships, combat formation. Prepare for engagement." What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for decades. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 17 minutes. The human ships moved like nothing the Varathians had ever seen. They accelerated faster. They changed direction without slowing down. Their weapons hit with perfect accuracy from distances that should have been impossible. The Varathian fleet tried to fight back. They used every tactic in their military doctrine. They attempted flanking maneuvers. They focused fire on single targets. They deployed electronic warfare. Nothing worked. The human ships countered every strategy before the Varathians could complete it. It was like fighting an enemy that could see the future. Varathian ships died in groups. The human weapons did not destroy them with explosions. They simply stopped working. Systems failed. Power cores went offline. Weapons refused to fire. One moment a Varathian warship was operational. The next moment it was a drifting piece of metal. "Second Fleet is at 40% casualties," Krell reported. His voice was barely audible. "Third Fleet is requesting permission to retreat." "Denied!" Dravik shouted. "We will not retreat from humans." "Sir," Krell said quietly, "we should retreat." A human voice came through the speakers. It was Captain Hannah again. "Commander Dravik, you have lost 60% of your forces. Your remaining ships cannot win this engagement. I'm offering you one chance. Withdraw now. Take your ships and leave human space. Or we will disable every single vessel you command." Dravik's hands gripped his command chair so hard his claws cut into the metal. His pride screamed at him to keep fighting. But his training, his military education, and his survival instinct all told him the same thing. This battle was over. It had been over from the moment Captain Hannah's ship had shrugged off their initial attack. The Varathian ships turned and fled. The human vessels did not pursue. They simply watched as the alien fleet retreated in disorder. Ships that had arrived in perfect formations now scattered in every direction. Desperate to escape, the Eternal Fang was one of the last ships to reach the gateway. As they passed through, Dravik looked back at the human fleet. The ships hung in space like dark birds of prey, silent and deadly. Captain Hannah's face appeared on the screen one final time. Tell your Empress what happened here. Tell her that humanity has been waiting. Tell her that we gave her a chance. Her expression hardened. And tell her that an old man tried to warn her. The transmission ended. The gateway closed behind them. Commander Dravik sat in his command chair and stared at nothing. Around him, his bridge crew worked in silence. They had entered human space with 3,000 ships. They were returning with fewer than 1,200, and they had not destroyed a single human vessel. In his quarters that night, Dravik wrote his report to Empress Valrix. His hands shook as he typed. 3 words kept repeating in his mind over and over. The throne room was silent as death. Empress Valrix sat on her black crystal throne and stared at Commander Dravik. He stood in the center of the chamber with his head bowed. His armor was damaged. Burns and scratches covered his body. Behind him stood a dozen other military commanders, all looking equally defeated. Say that again, Valrix said quietly. Slowly, Dravik swallowed. His throat was dry. We lost over 1,800 ships, my Empress. The human fleet destroyed or disabled them in less than 20 minutes. We were completely outmatched. Their technology is far beyond anything in our databases. Valrix stood up. Her 6 eyes focused on Dravik like weapons aiming. You commanded 3,000 ships, the finest warships in the Empire, against 500 human vessels using 200-year-old technology. And you are telling me you lost? Their technology is not old, another commander said. His name was Velk, captain of the destroyer wing. Everything they used was new. New ships, new weapons, new shields. It was like fighting an enemy from the future. Valrix walked down the steps of her throne. Her footsteps echoed through the chamber. How is this possible? Our intelligence said humanity abandoned military development. They withdrew from the galaxy. They became peaceful. The old human tried to tell us, Dravik said quietly. Valrix turned sharply. What did you say? Teeman, the prisoner. He warned us that humanity had been preparing. We thought he was lying, trying to scare us with stories. Dravik looked up at the Empress. He was not lying. Valrix was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to her advisors. Bring me everything we have on the Coalition Wars, every record, every report. I want to know who the humans were before they disappeared. An older advisor, a Varathian named Crix, stepped forward. He was thin and bent with age. My Empress, those records are classified. They are sealed in the ancient archives. I did not ask if they were sealed, Vorex said coldly. I told you to bring them to me now. Crix bowed and hurried away. The other advisors looked at each other nervously. They had all heard stories about the Coalition Wars, but those events happened so long ago that most people thought they were exaggerated legends. 2 hours later, Crix returned. He carried several data crystals that glowed with a faint blue light. The records, my Empress. But I must warn you, some of this information is ... disturbing. Valrix took the crystals and inserted them into the throne room's central display system. Holographic screens appeared in the air, showing documents, videos, and tactical maps from centuries ago. The first file showed a battlefield. Varathian forces would not recognize the weapons or ships, but they would recognize the carnage. Bodies everywhere. Destroyed cities, burning worlds. At the center of every image were human forces, fighting with a determination that seemed almost insane. The Coalition Wars lasted 47 years, Crix narrated as the images changed. Multiple species fighting for control of resources, territory, and power. Humanity was not the largest military force. They were not the most technologically advanced. But they were the most feared. Why? Velk asked. Because they never stopped, Crix said simply. Other species would fight until they reached a certain casualty percentage, then retreat. Humans would fight until they won or until everyone was dead. They turned every planet into a fortress. every moon into a weapons platform. They used tactics that other species considered mad. The screen showed a recording of a human commander during the wars. He was younger than Timon, but had the same sharp eyes. He spoke to his troops before a battle. "We do not have the biggest ships. We do not have the best weapons. But we have something they do not have. We have the will to do whatever it takes. Remember that. Remember why we fight. And remember that humans never surrender." The troops cheered. The recording ended. More files appeared. Battle reports from Varathian ancestors who had fought against human forces. One report caught everyone's attention. "This is from the Battle of Sector 9, Crick said. The report appeared on the main screen. A human battalion of 300 soldiers held off an invasion force of 30,000 for 91 days. They used guerrilla tactics, captured enemy equipment, and improvised weapons. By the time reinforcements arrived, only 12 humans were still alive. But the invasion force had been reduced to less than 4,000. 12 humans survived? Dravik asked. Against 30,000? The report lists their commander, Crix continued. He highlighted a name at the bottom of the document. Commander Timon. The ghost of Sector 9. The throne room went completely silent. He was not lying, Velk whispered. He really was there. More reports appeared. Timon's name showed up again and again. He led a mission to destroy an enemy superweapon by piloting a damaged shuttle into its reactor core. He survived. He commanded a fleet that was outnumbered 5-1 and still won by predicting enemy movements 3 steps ahead. He trained resistance fighters on occupied worlds and turned civilian populations into armies. The ghost of Sector 9, Varix read aloud. Given that name because he seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Could strike at any time. Could not be killed. Enemy forces developed superstitions about him. They said seeing him meant your death was coming. She looked at Dravik. We captured a legend and treated him like a joke. There is more, my empress, Crix said nervously. About what happened at the end of the wars. The screens changed again. This time they showed a massive space battle. Hundreds of ships on all sides, firing everything they had. The destruction was total. When the battle ended, entire fleets had been reduced to debris fields. The final battle of the Coalition Wars, Crix explained. Humanity and their allies won, but at terrible cost. 3 billion people died in that battle alone. Entire species were nearly wiped out. After it ended, all sides looked at what they had done and realized they had nearly destroyed the galaxy. That was when humanity withdrew. Varix asked. Yes, the human government made a statement. Crix pulled up an old video. A human woman appeared on screen. She was middle-aged with gray in her hair and sadness in her eyes. I am President Yuna of the United Human Nations, she said. Today we announce humanity's withdrawal from galactic affairs. We have seen what we are capable of when pushed to war. We have become something we do not want to be. We need time to remember who we were before the fighting. Time to heal. Time to think about what kind of species we want to be. She paused and looked directly at the camera. We are leaving the galaxy to rebuild without us. But know this. We are not abandoning our defenses. We are not abandoning our people. We are simply choosing peace. And we hope the galaxy will choose the same. But if the day comes when we must fight again, we will be ready. This time we will be better prepared. This time we will not lose. The recording ended. Empress Valrix sat back down on her throne. She felt tired in a way she had never experienced before. How did our intelligence miss all of this? The Coalition Wars were a long time ago, Crix said. Most modern species do not remember them. The files were sealed and forgotten, and humanity kept their promise. They stayed isolated. They did not interfere with galactic affairs. After 200 years, most people assumed they had faded away. But they did not fade, Dravik said. They prepared. For 2 centuries, Valrix said slowly. They spent 200 years developing new technology, training new soldiers, building new ships, all while the galaxy forgot about them. She laughed, but it was not a happy sound. We woke up something that had been sleeping, and it was having nightmares about us. A guard entered the chamber. My Empress, there is a transmission from the human government. They are requesting communication. Valrix straightened in her throne. Put it through. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. An older human woman materialized. She wore a dark suit with simple decoration. Her hair was silver and pulled back. Her face showed intelligence and authority. I am Director Minji of Human External Affairs, she said. Her voice was professional but not cold. Empress Valrix, we need to talk about what happens next. We? Valrix asked. Should not I be the one demanding negotiations? Your forces attacked my fleet. Your fleet entered our space with hostile intent, Minji replied. They approached one of our colonies with weapons charged. Captain Hannah responded appropriately. But this does not have to continue. War helps neither of us. You are offering peace after defeating my forces? We are offering dialogue, Minji corrected. There is a difference. Empress Valrix, I know you have been reviewing the Coalition War records. You understand now who we are and what we can do. But I want you to understand something else. We do not want to be those people again. We do not want to return to what we were during those wars. She leaned forward slightly in the hologram. But we will if we must. If you continue this invasion, humanity will respond. And it will not be measured. It will not be gentle. It will be total. Just like before, is that a threat? Valrix asked. It is a fact, Minji said simply. But it does not have to be reality. You can choose differently. We can choose differently. The question is, are you willing to choose peace? Valrix looked around the chamber. At Commander Dravik with his damaged armor. At Valk and the other commanders. At Krix and the data crystals full of terrible history. At the hologram of Director Minji waiting patiently for an answer. Negotiations did not go well. Director Minji offered reasonable terms. The Varathian Empire would recognize human territorial borders. Both sides would establish a demilitarized zone. Trade agreements would be discussed. Cultural exchange programs would begin. It was a fair proposal that would benefit both civilizations. Empress Valrix wanted to accept. She had seen the records. She understood what humanity could do. But the military faction within her government refused. Led by hardline commanders who had not witnessed the battle at New Jeju, they demanded revenge for the humiliation. They claimed the loss was due to poor leadership, not superior human forces. They insisted that a proper military response would crush the humans. The hardliners gained support from nobles, who owned companies that built weapons and ships. War was profitable for them. They whispered in the Empress's ear about how accepting defeat would make her look weak, about how other species would see the Empire as vulnerable, about how she needed to show strength. Valrix made a decision she would regret for the rest of her life. She authorized a second military operation. But this time, the target would not be a colony world. The target would be Fortress Katter. Fortress Katter was the greatest military installation in the Varathian Empire. Built over 50 years, it orbited a dead planet near the border of human space. The fortress was a moon-sized station with weapons that could destroy fleets, shields that could withstand sustained bombardment. 10,000 soldiers stationed there at all times. It had never been breached, never been damaged. It was the symbol of Varathian military might. The plan was simple. The Empire would mass its forces at Fortress Katter. They would make it clear they were preparing for a massive invasion of human space. They would dare the humans to attack. And when the humans came, the fortress would destroy them. Then the real invasion would begin. Commander Dravik opposed the plan. He went to Empress Valrix privately and begged her to reconsider. My Empress, you have seen what the humans can do. This is a mistake. We should accept their peace offer. But Valrix had made her decision. The military council insists this will work. Fortress Katter has never fallen. The humans will break themselves against it. Then they will have no choice but to surrender. Dravik said nothing more. He knew arguing was useless. But that night he sent a secret message to his family, telling them to leave the capital and go to a remote colony. Just in case, the Varathian military began gathering at Fortress Katter, 5,000 warships, hundreds of support vessels, every weapon system online, every soldier at battle stations. They broadcast their preparations on all frequencies, making sure the humans knew what was coming. The human response came from Admiral G1. She was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and a face that had seen many battles. She commanded the human defense fleet from a ship called the Horizon's Edge. Her transmission was brief. Varathian Empire, you are making a grave mistake. Stand down your forces at Fortress Katter, disperse your fleet. Return to the negotiating table. If you do not, we will be forced to respond. This is your final warning. The hardliners in the Varathian government laughed when they heard it. One warning from one admiral. Against the might of Fortress Katter, they ignored her completely. 3 days later, the human fleet arrived. They did not come with thousands of ships. The force that appeared near Fortress Katter numbered only 300 vessels. But these ships were different from the ones that had fought at New Jeju, larger, more heavily armed. And at the center was the Horizon's Edge, a massive ship that seemed to bend light around it. Commander Dravik stood in Fortress Kattar's main command center. He looked at the display showing the human fleet. 300 ships against 5,000 and a fortress. The odds seemed impossible for the humans. But Dravik remembered New Jeju. He remembered how quickly everything had fallen apart. All ships, battle formation, he ordered. Power all weapons. Prepare to engage. The human fleet did not charge forward. They did not power weapons. They simply stopped at maximum range and waited. What are they doing? An officer asked. Dravik did not answer. He was watching the Horizon's Edge. Something about that ship worried him. It sat in space like a predator waiting for the right moment. Then Admiral Jiwan's face appeared on all screens in the fortress. She looked tired. Sad even. But her voice was firm. Commander Dravik, I know you are in command of Fortress Katter. I know you witnessed what happened at New Jeju. I know you understand what is about to happen. You tried to warn your Empress. You tried to stop this. I want you to know that what follows is not personal. It is necessary. The transmission paused. When Jiwan spoke again, her voice was harder. Humanity did not want this war. We offered peace. We offered cooperation. But you would not listen. You forced our hand. So now we will show you exactly why humanity withdrew from the galaxy 2 centuries ago. We will show you what we are capable of. And we will do it in a way that leaves no doubt. The screens went dark. Sir, a sensor officer called out. The human ships are deploying something. Small objects. Thousands of them. Dravik watched as the human fleet released clouds of tiny devices. They looked like metal seeds scattered in space. What are those? Unknown. They are too small to be missiles. They are just floating. The seeds began to move. They spread out in a precise pattern, forming a web around Fortress Katter. As they moved, they started emitting signals. Electronic warfare signals. Jamming frequencies. Disruption waves. Sir, our sensors are failing, the communications officer reported. We are losing contact with outer defense platforms. Long-range weapons are going offline. Switch to backups, Dravik ordered. Backups are not responding. The interference is too strong. On the main display, the human ships began to move. They did not rush forward in a mass attack. Instead, they moved with surgical precision. Groups of ships targeted specific sections of the fortress. They fired weapons that looked like concentrated beams of purple light. The beams hit the fortress shields. But instead of exploding, they seemed to sink into the shields like water into sand. Seconds later, entire sections of the shield grid went dark. Shields at 60%, the defense officer reported. His voice was rising in panic. No, 50%, 40. Sir, the shields are collapsing and we have not even fired back yet. All ships engage the human fleet, Dravik ordered. Fire everything. The Varathian ships opened fire. 5,000 warships all shooting at once. It was the largest concentration of firepower in the Empire's history. Energy beams crossed space in a web of destruction. Missiles flew in swarms. Railgun rounds created streams of metal. The human ships did not try to dodge. They just kept moving forward through the storm of weapons. Their shields absorbed everything. Not a single human vessel took damage. Impossible, someone whispered. Then the human ships returned fire. What happened next was not a battle. It was a demonstration. The human weapons did not destroy Varathian ships. They disabled them. Power cores shut down. Weapons stopped working. Life support failed. One by one, Varathian vessels went dark and drifted helplessly in space. At the same time, smaller human craft appeared. They looked like shuttles but moved faster than fighters. These craft flew through the chaos and attached to the fortress hull. Soldiers in powered armor emerged and began cutting through the outer walls. "We have breaches in sections 7 through 15, security reported. Human troops are inside the fortress. Dravik felt a cold weight in his stomach. Send all available soldiers to repel them. But the human soldiers were unlike any troops the Varathians had faced. They moved through the fortress corridors with perfect coordination. Their armor made them faster and stronger than Varathian warriors. Their weapons cut through everything. Worst of all, they knew exactly where they were going. "How do they know our layout?" an officer demanded. "These corridors are classified." "They have been planning this for a long time," Dravik said quietly. "The human troops did not kill unless they had to. They disabled Varathian soldiers with weapons that knocked them unconscious. They used gas that put people to sleep. They were efficient and precise. Within 2 hours, they had reached the main reactor level." "Sir," the chief engineer called. "The humans are in the reactor control room. They are accessing our systems. They are taking control of the power grid." The lights in the command center flickered, then went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in red. "They have shut down our main power," the engineer continued. "Weapons are offline. Shields are gone. Life support is switching to emergency batteries." Dravik looked at the tactical display. It was dead. The screen showed nothing. Fortress Katter, the greatest military installation in the Empire, had been conquered. In less than 6 hours, his communication panel beeped. A voice came through. It was Captain Hanna, the young officer from New Jeju. "Commander Dravik, this is Captain Hanna. Fortress Katter is under human control. Your weapons are disabled. Your ships are unable to fight. Please order your forces to stand down. We do not want unnecessary casualties." Dravik was silent for a long moment. Then he activated the fortress-wide communication system. "All Varathian forces, cease fire. Stand down. Evacuate to emergency shuttles." His voice was heavy with defeat. "The battle is over,"